You know, I know people are, I've been told so many times that people are waking up little by little, but I always say that this is what prisoners do, and when they're in prison, they wake up every morning. But it doesn't matter, they're in prison anyway. They might as well go back to bed. So, you know, you talked about me being a part of the conspiracy community, so to speak. But you know, I've had people say I started what they call the truth movement, because I've been talking about the subjects that the truth movement conspiracy people have been, you know, talking about. But I was talking about it back in 59, 60, and 61. As a matter of fact, the day that John Kennedy President Kennedy was assassinated, that morning I was on my way down to Los Angeles to give a lecture about secret societies and world government and religion. And so, you know, when that happened, I thought, well, there it is. I'm talking about it today. And so I've been doing this for, you know, like you said, since 59, 60. And I don't like the term conspiracy theory. I prefer to think what I'm doing is conspiracy analyst.
Okay.
Because all I'm doing
it's no theory. It's just the facts.
Yeah,
all you're presenting is the facts. Yeah.
And then we know now, we found out that it was the CIA back in the 50s, late 50s, that came up with the term conspiracy theorist. It was a CIA dreamt up idea that implies that if you tell people what's really going on and show them the documents right from government documents and right from people, no matter what it is you show for proof of something going on, it's just a theory. It doesn't mean it's true. It's just somebody's idea, just somebody's theory. Well, that is extremely dangerous. That is probably demonic, because no matter what anyone does in this world, no matter, you know, no matter how bad they are, you can always say, well, it's just your theory. I mean, and therefore the whole world is allowed to do whatever they want, and it's just your theory. If you find out and you want to tell people about something evil that's going on, it's just your theory. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Well, boy, you've opened yourself up to a whole world of darkness, of evil, because the people that are pulling all of this stuff off are getting away scot-free, totally free, because you know, because it's all just your idea. I mean, and so what do you use as a foundation to build any of life on? Because as far as the CIA is concerned, they want everybody to assume that no matter what anybody says, it's all just bull, it's all just some theory. So it's very, very dangerous, because now look at what has happened to the human family in relation to communicating with each other, the way humans communicate by talking and writing and getting ideas back and forth to people. It has destroyed that whole foundation. So that today, if you are not on your own and by yourself intelligent, then you are totally finished in this world. Because if you cannot think for yourself, then you don't have a chance in the world to figure out what's going on.
Right.
So that's what I see. And people tell me, well, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Things are getting better. I say a light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming.
Right.
And, and so I just feel now that I've done as much as I can with nothing. And for the past 30 years, actually since 89, I went professional in my work, meaning I started traveling and speaking at events and writing, and because I had been doing this kind of lectures and research and talking to people, and I've been doing that, like I said, since '59. But I was doing it more of a hobby. It was my love. But it was in '89 that I actually went professional and started doing it and traveling around the world and getting invitations to speak at conferences and large television shows. And I've worked on so many of them, from History Channel, Discovery Channel, and CBS, and so many different major outlets I've been a professional speaker on, and they call it a live witness. And so it's been an incredible experience. But I just do what I do, and hopefully somebody will hear. And my philosophy about my work is very simple. I figure whoever is supposed to hear me will, and whoever's not supposed to hear me won't. And so I don't care. I just do what I do because that's who I am, and that's what I do, and that's my feeling about life, is that, we're not here. I'm not here because I was born. I'm here because there was a reason for me to be here. So many people live lives which are uneventful lives just because they happen by chance to have been born. That's why they're here. And so they just do whatever everybody else does. Like this, and I'm telling you, there's a really powerful encoded message in the New Testament when we talk about religion. And religion is one thing, but spiritual discernment and spiritual knowledge is totally different. And so I'm saying, if you read the New Testament story of Jesus, understanding it as a philosophy and as a spiritual matrix, understanding it, it's fascinating about how much is actually there, because it has Jesus talking about the fact that people are like water. They're called the waters of the sea. Well, that's true. I mean, in business, it's maritime admiralty law, the law of the sea. And it says that the people are like the waves of the sea. Well, the waves are going one way, and then they splash and crash against the rock, and then they go backwards. There's an undertow, and they go back out again. Then they come back in and crash against the rock again, and they go back out. It never stops. And so, well, that's the way the human race is. We vote for Republicans and get burned and find out they're criminals. And then you crash against the rock, and then you go back out and think about it, and then you come back and you're a Democrat, and then you find out they're a bunch of criminals, and they crash against the rock. So that's the way the people of the world are. One day they're all for this guy, and then a week or so later they're for somebody else, and back and forth, and nobody knows what's going on. Everybody just goes with the flow. And so I learned that a long time ago as a kid. I just watched adults as a small kid. I just watched adults, the way they think and the way they don't reason. And I just started formulating in myself the idea that I'm cutting myself off. Even as 12, 13 years old, I began thinking, I'm cutting myself off from the flow of the life flow that I live. I want to think for myself. I'm tired of just going with my friends wherever they want to go, whatever they want to do, and I'm not buying that anymore. I don't want to go where everybody else is going and doing what everybody else is doing. I'm not like everybody else. I'm an individual, and I respect my individuality, and so that's the way I've lived my life. I don't care what people are doing. I couldn't care less what's important to the world today. None of it's important if you understand what's really going on.
Right. And Jordan, you know, most people don't feel that strongly when they're at a young age to have such an identity. So I would say that has set you apart pretty much all your life. Would you say that?
Oh God, yes. There's no doubt about that. And believe me, it's a very, very difficult and
it's hard. It's hard.
Very difficult.
And because you know who you are deep down inside, and
that's right.
You have that solid feeling inside yourself. I do too. And I was wondering, do you think that the dark side, like, had you targeted from birth, and has people like with the high mission, when they come in, do you think they can recognize that soul energy?
No doubt in my mind, no doubt about it whatsoever.
And you're targeted every turn in your life.
No doubt about it.
And you're tested and targeted, and they send people in to screw with you and to mess things up, to lead you off your path. I've experienced that, and I know a lot of other people have too. And it's usually people with the highest missions are the ones that they go after the most.
Well, of course, but you can understand that even militarily.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you think in wartime, it's not your normal soldier that the spies are after. They're coming in. They're being sent in to go after the big guys. Who know what they're doing. You know, that's where the spies are going.
Right.
And so there's an old proverb that says, I like the way it's said, you can tell the stature of a man by the size of his enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, if you're continually 24/7 being harassed and threatened and chided and have people belligerently calling you names and trying to destroy your reputation, and there must be a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because the people who are brainless, who are criminals, who have nothing of any intrinsic value to give to their fellow man at all, are millionaires. They're big, driving big cars, they're living well, while individuals who have really done something for the human race are usually not just marginalized. They end up in prison, mm-hmm. or dead, or committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And all you got to do is go back into the ancient Roman history and read the philosophers of ancient Rome. And Plato and Aristotle wrote about it, about how the wise and intelligent and spiritually evolved people are the bane of society. They are the ones that are condemned. They usually end up in prisons. And of course, again, I go back to the Bible and the metaphor that there's a story in the Bible about how the governor of the city called all the people of the town together in a mass meeting, and he said that you might remember this from the scriptures. And he said that according to your traditions, I can allow one person to go free each year. And so today I will release one prisoner to you. And so we have today on the left, I have Barrabás, who is a known criminal and has been a criminal all his life. And on the other hand, I have a man named Jesus who is bringing the truth and the light to the world. So which one do you want? And the scripture says that with one voice, everyone with one voice said, give us Barrabás.
Mm-hmm.
Well, symbolically, as a metaphor, that's mind-boggling, mm-hmm. because that's precisely what happens in the world.
Right.
When the people of this world are confronted with a decent person who is doing something of intrinsic value to help the human race, to try and alert people, or or you've got a criminal that everybody knows is as foul a criminal as ever been. They will always support that one. They will never support anyone who is doing something of legitimate spiritual and human value. Never. It never has happened. It's not happening now. It's in the scriptures. It's ancient idea. The world of mankind says, give us Barabbas. In other words, in any city, in any town, in any country, in any family, and anywhere there are people gathered, the group is going to say, the groupthink is, we don't want to hear the truth. We want to hear what we want to hear. And that is another point that needs to be made. And I've said this before, but I think it bears witness again to now, is that people will always support what they want. They will not support what they don't want. I mean, you're not going to, if you love country music, you're not going to pay $100 to an acid rock concert. And if you love opera, you're not going to pay money for a rock and roll concert. You're not going to go and eat at a restaurant you don't like. You're not going to go to a movie you can't stand. So if you're going to listen to music, you want to listen to what you want to listen to, not what other people like. And so the one thing that history has taught us, if anything, is that generally speaking, not everyone, but generally speaking, the masses of the people of the world, the one thing they don't want and they're not interested in supporting is truth. They're not interested in the truth. They're interested in what they want to hear. This is why you have so many people being conned, like in a classic example in your face is Christian television, where it's just amazing to watch how people buy into something that even an 8-year-old with a normal mind will see as ludicrous on the face of it. But grown adult humans just love it. They pay lots of money so that these charlatans and liars and performers can, buy their $40 million jets and fly around the world and live in enormous mansions. And where are they getting that kind of money? Simple. They just tell people what they want to hear. They tell everybody the Lord loves you, and Jesus is coming back to save you, and the world is just wonderful. Of course it's wonderful when you got a $40 million jet, a 15-room home. And it's wonderful for you. But it's just amazing watching what adult humans will buy into. And I learned a long time ago that what insanity is doing the same thing over and over each day, expecting a different result. And so every day people are buying into the bull, buying into the same lies. And it's only an older person that can look back and see this is the same stuff that I grew up with. I mean, it's the same old stuff. I remember back in the 50s and early 1950s, hearing the politicians talking about what was going to happen and what they're going to do, and what we need to do is they need to clean this up, and we need to vote against this and vote for that. And here it is, 50, 60, 70 years later, hearing the same stuff from the same people, the same old politicians. And so this is why the military does not draft guys 50 and over. Guys 50 years old and older are the ones who have got the experience in life to know how to do things right. If you're going to go to war, then do it right. Well, the military is not interested in that. They don't want you to thinking. They want you to just wear the uniform, and that's scary.
Just take orders.
Yeah, and take orders. That's it. You don't need to know nothing.
Right.
You don't need to read nothing, cut your hair off, beat you up, put you in a uniform. And the very word, uniform, They put you in a uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And uniformity, so that everybody looks alike, everybody steps left, right, left, right, left, right. Well, that's what we're doing in America. There's the left wing and the right wing. There's the Democrat and the Republican. So there's the left and the right, and left, right. Well, that's the way you march into hell. You march. Everybody is stepped into marching. Everybody will vote for so and so. Everybody will support this. Everybody will, and then you watch on television the big games of football games, basketball, and where just tons of thousands of people are paying money to watch a bunch of adults throwing balls and play with a ball, and the mentality is just frightening because the whole world is in the power of a dark, demonic depravity.
Right.
And but nobody seems to know, like George Carlin says, nobody seems to know, nobody seems to care.
Right.
It's just amazing to me.
It's like we were talking earlier about the dark mind and how it's encroached and infiltrated and is just controlling the whole world. The whole world, everywhere. Speaking of...
But again, look at the scripture says, the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one.
Right, right.
Well, that's true. The whole world is lying in the dark power.
I feel like this is Satan's domain, and
no doubt about it.
We're just here trying to do what we do and trying to help people make their right decision before the time is up. And
the time is up.
Right. Speaking of that and marching, we talked about earlier about that that video that's gone viral about the opening ceremony to the tunnel in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really awful. But
it's frightening because to sensitive, enlightened, evolved, spiritually and intellectually evolved and enlightened humans, which is only a handful left on the earth. It's frightening because anyone who is spiritually awake and alive and have their own mind and haven't lost their mind and haven't bought into the system, end quote, watches that ritual that's being displayed on YouTube about the opening of that tunnel. It's truly is frightening because it tells you that the whole human race, with the exception of the enlightened people, which, as I said, is a very few, but the masses of the world all think alike. They are easily led, and people, the people want to be. That's another problem. This is probably at the bottom of it. Almost all humans, not me, and there are others like me, but almost all humans need and want and require the friendship of all their friends. They want to be accepted, accepted in the class. No child and a kid in a school wants to be laughed at, mocked, and left out of everything. We humans want to be liked. We want to have family and friends, and we want to be a part of the community and respected. That's part of being a human. That's part. I mean, even the animals, dogs travel in packs, and birds travel in flocks, and cattle fall together, and so the different life forms want to be accepted as part of the life form, and so humans want to be loved and accepted by their friends. I never had that problem. First of all, I didn't have that many friends, and I don't care if anybody loves me. The only thing I care about is leave me alone. Don't bother me with your bullshit. I've had enough of this stuff.
Right.
I want to think on my own. And I don't buy into your ball games. I'm not buying into your politics. I'm not buying into your ignorant viewpoints on everything. And this is what religion has done to the mankind. You know, the idea in religion is to be a believer. Even today, if you go to a Christian church and they don't know you, they will ask you if you're a believer, you know, and how long have you been a believer? And look at that word in relation to Christianity. Look how many books have been written about Christianity, talking about the believer's faith and the faith of the believer. And you know, even as a kid, I would ask adults, why are you putting so much emphasis on believers? Believing implies that you don't know anything.
Right, right.
But you believe something. Why are you promoting that? Why don't you promote telling people to go to a school and learn how to read and think instead of believing? I mean, I like what Rodney Dangerfield, I think it was, who said one time. He said, belief is that wonderful quality that gives you the ability to believe something that you know is bullshit.
Right.
And so I thought to myself, that is precisely the truth. And so that's why people, and incidentally, there's another facet to this problem of how humans think. Nobody wants to be on the outside. Nobody wants to be the lone guy by himself standing against the group. Right. Nobody wants that. People want to be accepted in the family, accepted in their classroom, accepted at work. People want to be accepted by their fellow man.
It's all part of the clan.
It is. It's called hive thinking, like bees. Right. I mean, that's why the Mormons have their major symbol for the Mormon church is a beehive. And that's why ABC and Disney makes a movie called Ants. And if you watch the movie series called Ants, and it talks about the hive and the hive mentality, and all the ants will follow whatever the queen says. All the ants will follow and do whatever they're supposed to do. They don't think, they don't read, they don't question. Just watch an ant colony. Nobody's reading, nobody's thinking, nobody's researching anything. Everybody is born to do what they do, period. And you do it to the day you die. And when an ant dies, you know, who cares? Who knows? My God, there's millions of them, and they all do the same thing, and nobody knows where they came from. Nobody knows where they're going when they leave here. All they know is what they got to do, and all they got to do is whatever everybody else is doing. That's what they got to do. Right. So me, I just understood. I've always felt about myself, I wasn't born to be here. I mean, I don't know where I've come from or where I'm going at all. But at least I'm honest enough to say that. But one thing I do know is that I'm not buying into anybody else's paralysis. I'm not buying into it. Right. You know, I was thinking the most horrible, and especially for somebody who has really all their life studied all kinds of, from science to philosophy to religion to government to commerce to all the occult sciences, and just had an insatiable appetite to learn. But I was thinking to myself, and I've thought this often, what would you feel like if you were like 85, 90 years old, and you were in a rest home, and you were not only in a rest home, but you're sitting there by yourself, and all of your friends are gone, all the people that you listened to and that you tried to follow and emulate and be like them and be a part of what they were doing, and they're all gone, and you sitting here at 85, 90 years old, and never, ever even suspecting all of the profound, awesome, incredible world of science and technology and physics and astronomy and all of the ancient sciences and philosophies of the world, all of the greatness that mankind is capable of, and you did nothing.
Mm-hmm.
All you did was drink your beer and go to the ball game and listen to your friends and voted for this goofball and voted for that criminal. And all your life you've been ripped off, lied to, deceived, and now at 90 years old you sit there and you never ever knew anything of any intrinsic value at all. And I think, my God, what a horrible realization that would be, to wake up and know that you wasted your whole life and listening to other people, listening to what they thought. So,
it's a real, it's like a real emptiness.
Oh God, yes.
And you can see it. I used to work in nursing homes, and you can see it in the people's eyes. They're hopeless and have, of course they're old. They're old and sick, but a lot of times it's in the mind. It all started in the mind because their minds were blank to begin with.
That's exactly right. And see, here's the problem with that. The real problem comes when you begin to dissect this problem.
Mm-hmm.
The real tragedy is they had children,
mm-hmm.
and they didn't, and they themselves were ignorant, ill-informed, unread, and downright stupid, and they had children,
mm-hmm.
and they could not impart to their children anything of any intrinsic value because they don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
All they know is what their grandparents taught them.
Right.
And so then those children grow up to be modern-day citizens, and they have children, and they don't know anything, and those children have no idea what's going on until finally, one day, we've got billions and billions of people on the earth who collectively have got an IQ of 40.
Yeah.
And nobody, and when everybody is thinking the same thing, that tells me nobody's thinking at all.
Right.
And then you see the leaders, the political and religious leaders, the people who lead at work, the people who are the teachers' pets at school. They're always self-centered, egotistical, self-righteous, arrogant, and usually psychotic,
mm-hmm.
and end up being criminals. Well, that's the history of the human race.
Well, it's almost like it's two different races. They look human, but one's human and one is, has no human qualities.
Yeah, human, but they're androids.
Well, beyond that, they're evil ones too.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. So we have
George Lucas was trying to tell you something in his movie Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
And that little gold robot running around, and
mm-hmm.
all he could say was Master Luke. Oh yeah, Master Luke.
Right.
Master Luke. What George Lucas was telling you is that that's the way life is today. That's
mm-hmm.
It's a Star Wars,
mm-hmm.
implying there's a war in heaven.
Right.
It's a Star Wars,
mm-hmm.
and it's a war between little droids running around. Master Luke this and Master Luke said do that, and then the little gold man. That's maritime admiralty law,
mm-hmm.
gold and silver and maritime law,
mm-hmm.
and then of course the little gold man running around saying Master Luke
mm-hmm.
is also accompanied by a computer.
Right. R2D2.
That's it.
And the gold man was C3PU, C3PO.
Yeah, but that tells you something.
Yeah.
And if you remember many, many years ago, what was the name of that movie, that German pro-Nazi German guy made back in the 20s, late 20s, in Germany, called, I can't remember it, but it was about a mad scientist who created a woman. What was the name of that movie? Metropolitus or something like that.
Oh, Metropolis.
Metropolis.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. It's very spooky.
Very.
And the machine is running everything, and everything's
right.
in the big city that's behind the wall, and
What is
nobody
that
knows
telling you?
anything. Oh yeah,
What is
that was.
telling you?
Yeah, I found that. Yeah, that
But you
was
see, if
crazy.
you understand what happened in the 1870s and in Europe, and if you're not, if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you, like I have spent my life reading and studying history and how the world has evolved, and if you look at what happened in the 1870s, and what that caused in the 1890s, and with the crossing into the year, into 2000, you can see what that's why that old saying is: if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And so today we now have, instead of the woman was an artificial human that was created by her masters to serve them. And then George Lucas with the little man in gold running around. He's golden,
Mm-hmm.
and he's running around. That goes back to Rumpelstiltskin, going back to into the ancient world, the metaphysical stories, children's stories like Rumpelstiltskin, who was the banker who was able to take straw and turn it into gold. My God, I mean, it's just frightening when I hear these old stories that are actually, to me, frightening. They're scary.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's exactly how banks work today.
Right.
Is they weave straw into gold.
Right.
And your name in all capital letters is referred to as a straw man.
Mm-hmm.
And straw man is the base of maritime admiralty banking law.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just look at all these old nursery rhymes like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and you find out that in the book of Isaiah in the Bible, that Isaiah the prophet says that there will come a time when Israel, her sins will be wiped out, and she will be white as snow. And then in the New Testament talks about the Israel being white as snow. And then, of course, in the New Testament, you have the seven in the book of Revelation. Israel, white as snow, has seven congregations. They're referred to in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, as the seven congregations of Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And the seven congregations are followers of Israel, snow white, or white snow. And each one has a personality according to the Bible and according to Revelation. Each one of these congregations in ancient Asia and Europe had a personality. One was grumpy and never got along with anybody. One was ignorant and never listened. One was lazy, knew what to do but didn't. And so they're called the seven congregations of Asia. Well, that gives us the old children's story about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Mm-hmm.
And I could go on for hours. A book's been written about this stuff years ago, about all the nursery rhymes.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the teachings that we get as a children, as a child, all the stuff we learn in school, is all based on ancient stories that came out of ancient Greece, ancient Rome, our religions, our philosophies, our political.
Mm-hmm.
My Lord, I mean, sometimes I think to myself, why in the world did I begin to be curious about the world and do the kind of stuff I've done? Because today it's so overwhelmingly obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere I turn, it's
Mm-hmm.
obvious.
Yeah.
The world is ignorant, ill-informed, unread, dim-witted. My God, how people are deceived.
Right. Let's talk about a little bit more about the deception. And we talked in one of our conversations earlier about this being the end times, and not the final days. You were saying it's the final hours.
That's right.
And what is?
And to my way of viewing things, and I've been looking at this subject for 55 years professionally. I've been looking at this subject matter of where the world is, how we got here, and where it's going. I was talking about back in 1959, some 55 years ago, and people today that belittle my work and my name, and are saying that I have no idea what I'm talking about, a babbling old man talking about something. Well, I mean, I've been looking at this intellectually for 55 years, the history of the world, where we've come from, what we are now, and where we're going. Well, most people have not thought about this subject for 55 minutes. And I'm telling you, there's all the ancient holy writings of the world, from the Hindu to the Egyptian, the ancient Greek philosophers to the Romans, to theology, religion. My God, there's a subject. That's my most favorite subject, is religion. Mm-hmm. Because I've looked at it for 55 years, and all the words and the terms and the ideas and concepts in religion are fascinating. Mm-hmm. When you begin to see where they've really come from. Mm-hmm. But there's as I said, all the ancient writings of the world talked about the end times, the last days, the end of time, the end of civilization. Even the Bible in the book of Revelation talks about the last and final days of the world. Well, first of all, when Jesus said, "I am with you to the end of the world," that is a mistranslation of a word in Greek. World is a mistranslation. I think it's in Matthew 24:14, where he says, where Jesus says, "Go forth, to go forth and make disciples, and follow the scriptures until the end comes, and I will be with you to the end of the world." That's in Matthew 24:14. Well, that's a mistranslation. That's not what it says, like so many other times in the Bible. Mm-hmm. It's a mistranslation, because the word world that's translated world is not world. It's a Greek word, aeon, mm-hmm. A-E-O-N, or E-O-N, eon. Mm-hmm. So, eon is an age. It's a particular length of time. Mm-hmm. And in the biblical understanding, the eon or aeon, where Jesus said, "I will be with you to the end of the aeon," mm-hmm. meaning I will be with you to the end of this particular time period that mm-hmm. we're dealing with. Because, mm-hmm. The earth's been here for billions of years, but in particular in relation to you and the world you live in now, symbolically, Jesus, the truth and the light, he says, "I am the truth and the light." Mm-hmm. Well, the truth and the light is saying to you, in your time, for your world, in the world that you live in today, the truth and the light says, "I will be with you mm-hmm. to the end of the aeon," mm-hmm. which means the truth will always be here. It's just, unfortunately, you don't know what it is, but mm-hmm. at least it's always been here, and it'll always be here, except for you, because you don't know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But the word aeon simply means a period of time, a dispensation, and that's, my God, we got that in life. You go to work from 9 and get off at 5. You don't have to work there forever. There's a period of time. You start, and then through a period of time when you end. Mm-hmm. Well, the ancient Aztecs, the Mayans, the Toltecs, the Egyptians, and God knows everybody else, as far back as the ancient Hindus and the Sumerians, talked about a time when God created something and then when he destroyed it. And, Rome Rome comes up one day out of nowhere, and then Rome goes down the next day in another place. Mm-hmm. So things come and go. It's ebb and flow. It's the tides of the world. the tides of the world. The water comes in, the tide goes out. This stuff never stops, and it's the same old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And history repeats itself. So we're repeating ourselves again. Right now, the United States and the world, but I talk about America first because that's where I live. And second of all, America is the most powerful nation in the world, even though it's totally now gone off the deep end. But it's the most powerful nation in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's leading the whole world into what Christians have been talking about for years is the end times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we're in the end times, we are really in it now. It's not the end, like Billy Graham used to be famous for saying, well, if we don't change, this is going to happen, and we need to change our thinking. And if we don't change, this is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to think to myself, Billy Graham is a bullshitter.
Mm-hmm.
Telling people, well, if we don't change, people have never changed.
Mm-hmm.
When did the people of the Grecian Empire under Alexander change?
Mm-hmm.
When did the human race in Europe under the Caesars of Rome change? When has any nation of peoples on the earth ever changed?
Mm-hmm.
No one has ever changed. People just do what they've always done, which is self-destruct, ignorance, drunkenness, alcoholism, drug addiction, wars, entertainment, sex, drugs, rock and roll, music, stupidity, ignorance. Nobody changes. It's just a continual flowing back and forth of humanity, bouncing against the rocks, doing the best they can because they're ignorant, ill-informed, unread, and downright stupid. It's just it's horrible to hear religious people saying, well, if we don't change,
well,
you ain't never changed,
You might have a few people who will change or start to change.
Oh yeah, no, but I'm talking about
But as far as masses,
the whole world.
No,
the
masses
whole world is
don't
going to change, and tomorrow
No.
we're going to wake up and do a whole new thing. Well, we have never done a whole new thing.
No, it's because we're all being mind controlled.
That's exactly right.
And we're still being mind controlled, and we're part of the matrix. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they make movies about it, mock you. They laugh at you and mock you. The people who own our planet and who own you and own your life, they laugh at you and mock you. They make movies about you. They make television shows about Americans. The big thing today is zombies. They talk about zombies, and they show movies, and the people love to go watch the movies about zombies. And Hollywood's trying to tell you something. As a matter of fact, let me throw this in.
Okay.
What we call the white man's society, the black community and all the other Asian, but the white man, so to speak, occasion comes from Europe, Northeast, West, and Southern Europe. Incidentally, that's where we get the word news. N-E-W-S is Northeast, West, and South.
Mm-hmm.
So it's news. Well, the white man comes from Europe, Northeast, West, and Southern Europe. And that hundreds of years before the Roman Empire existed in Europe, or the Grecian Empire, there was already an established order of things, like in Africa. My God, Africa's been an established order for thousands and thousands of years. Well, in the white man's world of Europe, there was always an order of things. It evolved, of course, from one great kingdom and empire to another, but there was already always people there to start with. Well, the oldest order in Europe is still there, still operating like they always have for thousands of years. It's just that nobody recognizes the words. Nobody knows what the words mean, but it's the same people, the same ideas and thinking as in Europe today that was there 5,000 years ago. But people don't know that. And so the ancient Europe had a system of government, a system of life before the empires, And that system was called Druidic. The Druids were the system of Europe. We call it Druidism. Well, the Druids were the doctors, the lawyers, the priests, the physicians, the teachers, anybody that had a responsibility, an important position in society in Europe thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, and even today, were Druids. Look up the word in a dictionary. Well, one of the most important symbols in Druidism, in the religion and philosophy of Druids, was a magic wand. Like Merlin the magician with his magic wand, and Mickey Mouse with his magic wand, and of course today orchestra leaders lead the music. You play their music, but the orchestra leader is directing the music.
He's the conductor.
He's the conductor. How is he conducting the music? With his magic wand.
Right.
Okay. Well, magic wands were always made out of the wood of holly tree. It's made out of holly wood. And when you see how Hollywood is still waving their magic wand, making billions of dollars, and orchestrating how the world thinks. And so if they want you to be a communist, they will put out a lot of communist movies, Marxist-Leninist communist movies. They don't tell you that's what they are. And as long as you've never went to school and never read anything about Marxist communism or Marxist-Leninism, if you don't know anything about that subject, well, then you'd never know that the great movie star that you love and the movies he makes is Marxist-Leninist communism. But if you don't know, how are you supposed to know? You're ignorant like everybody else. You don't know. Or if Hollywood, the masters who wave their wand and everyone follows the magic of Hollywood, if they want you to be a Nazi, then they start producing Nazi philosophy in films, and then you'll go and pay big money to go to movies and entertainment on television, never realizing for a moment that the people who are producing this stuff in Hollywood for television, for movies, for your documentaries on Discovery Channel and History Channel, is Nazi philosophy, if you understand Nazism, National Socialism, or if you understand international socialism, Marxist-Leninism. If you are well-informed and intelligent, you see this, what is called propaganda, everywhere. And knowing, as I do, that 95% of the human race collectively does not realize how the world works. It's an extraordinary story of betrayal of the human race as to how this world really works. It's frightening. People do not know how a bank works. They don't know what the police department is. They have no idea in the world what the word military means. They have no idea or concept in the world of what theology is, where the word church comes from. What is God, G-O-D, in English is dog spelled backwards. What does that have to do with the dog star or Anubis, the Egyptian god? All kinds of strange knowledge. The human family is just not given. They're not allowed to know. It's on a need-to-know basis. And the masters of this world figure you don't need to know. Like George Carlin says. George Carlin's great. He said, it's a big club and you ain't in it.
Right.
And once you understand that the masters who own this world, they own the property you live on. They own the earth and everything on it. And that goes back into the ancient Sumerians and the Proto-Sumerians and the Babylonians and Sumerians, and then into the ancient Greeks and the Persian, Medo-Persian world, and from there into the Greek world, and from there into Rome, and from Rome into Europe. and Europe into Britannia, Britannia into America, and all of this stuff goes back into thousands of years of human, what we call mankind's inhumanity to man, the same old stuff that was being perpetrated on the human race, the bloodshed, the violence, the incredibly goofy-ass religions, is all with us today. And so I just look at the human race and realize that, even in my limited understanding of the world, I've only been here for 76 years. I mean, I would be a lot more well-informed if I could live for 1,000 years. But I know where the Bible comes from. I know who wrote the scriptures of the ancient. I know where all of these ancient concepts and ideas have come from, and where our country came from, and what America is, and why it's called America. People think it's called America from some Italian Amerigo Vespucci, or whatever his name was, supposedly found in America. No, the word America comes from a constellation of stars. There's a constellation, not one of the 12 major constellations, but there's about 96 actual constellations, but they're all little ones. But not the 12 major constellations at our equator. But no, there's like 96 or more little constellations, and one of them is over North America in July, early July. There's a small, tiny little set of stars called Merica, M-E-R-I-C-A, America, and that constellation is over us, over the northern hemisphere, where we can see it in July. So America was founded in July, July 4th, and why in 1776? Well, there's a reason why they had to have a revolution in 1776. Very simple. Because in the ancient Phoenician, Canaanite, or what we call the Jewish system of thinking thousands of years ago in ancient Middle East, they had a science called numerology, the study and the science of numbers. And according to the ancient world, this goes all the way back into Hindus and Egyptians and the ancient Hittites and all the ancient peoples of the world, realized that the world is made up of numbers. I mean, Einstein tried to explain that to us. And so in numerology, 8, the number 8, was always understood to be a number called the new beginnings. Everything starts on 8, and life starts over at 8. Everything starts over at 8. So from 1 to 7, you're building up to something. Then 8, it starts it all over again. So therefore, you got 7 days of the week, and the 8th day starts on Sunday again. So you're going to go another 7, and then that's the end of that week. Then you begin the new week on the 8th day. And so 8 is the number of new beginnings. It starts every time, starts on 8. Well, if you lay an 8 down on its side, it becomes a symbol for infinity. Mm-hmm. It never stops. It's the only number that you can write on a paper and never lift your pencil. You can go back and forth forever on an 8. Infinity.
Right.
So therefore, everything new starts on 8. Well, also, in the ancient world, as far back as we could go, it was always understood numerically that 13 was a perfect number for government. Everything, if you go back into the Sumerian Hittites and the Persians, and like I said, the Egyptians and Hindu, almost all the ancient cultures talked about the number 13 was a perfect number for government. Why even in Christianity? We have Jesus is one man, he's the king, and then there are 12 apostles. So Jesus and his chosen 12 are the basis for a Christian civilization. So, the 12 plus the master is 13. And so we have something called Christianity on the world Christian civilization. And so 13 is a perfect government. Jesus and his chosen 12. Well, 1776, according to ancient Masonic philosophy in Europe, all the ancient secret societies of Europe realized that if you're going to start the world over again, you need to do it in 1776. Because 1 and 7 is 8, and 7 and 6 is 13. So you've got a new beginnings, a new world order being founded in 1776 under the constellation of America, which is America. And because the founding fathers were incredibly wise and well-read and highly intelligent, they were a lot of things, but stupid wasn't one of them. They knew what they were doing. The people who founded this America, they knew exactly what they were doing. And they laid it out in relation to Atlantis, the ancient Greek lore about Atlantis, and they referred to America. In the writings of the founding fathers, they referred to the founding of this country as the New Atlantis. And they knew exactly when it needed to be founded in 1776. It had to be on July 4th. All of this is known to a small, tiny handful of people who are highly well-read and highly well-informed about the world and how it works. And so what I'm saying is that it's an extraordinary story of betrayal when the human race has no knowledge of any of this. And it's really, really sad to me to see the whole of human civilization moving toward the last and final days of a great empire. And if you look back at what Plato said about Atlantis, that's what's happening to America. We're going the same way the Roman Empire did. It started off, Rome started off, if you go back in history, it started off as a great republic, which was based on laws. And they had a constitution and of sorts. And there were laws, and nobody was above the law. Even the leaders of the republic were not above the law. And so, but then later on, the people didn't realize it, but their government changed from a republic to a democracy. And that began the slide into the toilet. Because any dictionary or reference work on the earth will tell you the worst possible government you can have on the earth, the very worst, is a democracy. That's the worst. Even if it's a people's democracy, or in America, we have a corporate democracy, not a people's democracy. In America, we have a corporate democracy. But it's a democracy if you understand the word, if you understand the epistemology of the concepts of the word, where it comes from. America is a corporate democracy, not a people's democracy. So that's why these lying, thieving politician criminals, they tell the people that we're a great democracy. No, you are a corporate democracy, not a people's democracy. And even a people's democracy is about as bad as a corporate democracy. Democracy simply means demo. Demo in a Greek is a demo, and Greek is a mob. So when you see a mob rioting in the streets after a basketball game, they're tearing up the town and busting windows and turning cars over. That's a demonstration. So we call it a demonstration, a demonstration. Demo in Greek is a mob, and they're out burning the town. And they are without a compass. They don't know what they're doing. They're just drunk on drugs and drinking, and they're having a ball, tearing up things, busting windows. They're rioting. Why? Because it's a demonstration. So a democracy democracy means a rule of the disorder, a rule of chaos. Demosocracy, the rule of the mob.
Yeah, so there's no rational thinking
Nothing.
or mind or anything like that.
Nothing
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
And so that's where we are today. That's
Yeah.
what we are today. We're a corporate democracy. 98 and 99% of the people in America are we're all in a corporate democracy, whether we like it or not, because the true Americanism is lost. Many years back in 1871, we became a democracy, if you go back into history. But, so that's why today, when politicians are running for office, it's like Obama, he talks about those wonderful democracy we're in. This is a Marxist-Leninist, Soviet communist terminology. Go back and get a dictionary or an encyclopedia or Webster's dictionary. Go back and get a book, one of the most important books ever written in this country, by the chief librarian of the Library of Congress, a man named James Billington. James Billington wrote a book. He's written a couple of incredible books and thousands of articles. But today, James Billington is the chief librarian for the Library of Congress. You don't get any better than that as a historian. He's got a whole string of PhDs from England and America. The man is brilliant. And he wrote a book, which is a mind trip to read, called Fire in the Minds of Men. Fire in the Minds of Men by James Billington. Incidentally, you can get it on the web for free. Just go to fireinthemindsformen.pdf and it pops up. Click here and download the whole book instantly for free. In there, he explains, chief librarian for the Library of Congress, the in man. This guy is in, if there's anybody on the inside, this is the man. And he says in his book, brilliantly lays it out how it happened. That many, many years ago, hundreds of years ago, there was the idea developed called communism, Marxist-Leninist communism, in which the French Revolution was being promoted by somebody called, a group called the League of the Just Men, the League of the Just. And not because it was just men, no, from justice. They were called the League of Justice, or Men of Justice, the League of Just Men. And the League of Just Men were a bunch of wealthy aristocrats, wealthy men who conspired together in the dark that no one should know to overthrow the king and the queen of France and overthrow the government and take over the rule of the French people, which at that time dominated Europe. So if they could overthrow France, they could overthrow Europe. And that's what they've done. They were called the League of Just Men. And in the dictionary will tell you, the League of Just Men became later in 1848 known as the League of Communists. So today, the League of Communism is the League of the Just Men of France. And when you begin to see how all of this stuff works, but anyway, in relation to democracy, he talked about how the League of Just Men promoted the idea of a democracy, meaning the rule of the masses. And so the League of Just Men, or the League of the Communists back in and back in the 17, they provided alcohol, drugs, entertainment, pornography, all kinds of disgusting stuff that would degenerate human thinking, to destroy the human society that was built up, where there are laws and regulations and knowledge about morality and good and evil. Well, the League of Just Men, the League of Communists, developed the idea, let's give them drugs, alcohol, pornographic entertainment, and just completely destroy their morals, their ethics, and make sure that in school they don't learn anything more than how to write their name. They don't know anything. They're not educated. They don't, and promote their religions, but especially promote their sports, so that the whole world will be filled with sports and alcohol, drugs, and BS, period. So anyway, I just look at all of this as an old man. I'm 76 years old. I'm a lot of things, but stupid is not one of them. And I realized a long time ago that, the world is hopelessly lost. And the biggest problem we face on the earth today as a human race is education, stupidity, ignorance, ill-informed, unread education is the biggest problem the human race has today. And from that, all the other maladies, all the other sicknesses of human society comes from the lack of education.
Right.
It's just an incredible story. I don't know. I mean, I go on and on. I could talk for hours, and as you can imagine. And but I'm just very, very disappointed in seeing.
I know. My
great country of America. For all of its imperfections, for all of its corruptions, like any other human society, but at least this one country, over 200 years ago, was founded on the idea of human freedom, the dignity of the individual person to think for themselves and to be free to think for them. Well, this is the one damn thing that Obama don't want. This is the one damn thing that the federal government of the United States don't want.
Right.
This is the one thing religions and churches and synagogues and mosques don't want. It's a team we're on, team players. They want you to be a part of the team. Come aboard, mate. You're part of the citizenship, and everybody's going to think alike. All the Democrats will think like a Democrat. All the Republicans will be Republican. Come aboard the ship, and wear a uniform so that you're in compliance with your masters. The demonic depravity, the pornographic, child-murdering, bloodletting murderers of the world who are running the planet, like Al Capone ran Chicago. I mean, somebody said a long time ago, all you need for evil to flourish is enough good men doing nothing.
Right.
Albert Einstein was quoted as saying that the world is a very dangerous place, not because bad people do bad things, but good people don't do nothing.
Right.
And so, I don't know. I'm talking your ear off, but all I know is that we are in America living now on borrowed time, and I place it in hours, not years. We as a civilization, as the American civilization, have become, we've been overthrown. The word in French is coup d'etat. The word in French is coup d'etat. Look it up in a dictionary. A coup d'etat is when a government has been overthrown. My God, we see that all the time in Central America and South America. My God, all over the world. I mean, presidents come in, governments are voted in, and 6 weeks later there was a big riot and a massive overthrow of the government. And there's a new guy comes in, and he's in there for 9 months, and then they murder him. They found his body. And there's a new government coming in. And CIA is great for that. They form new governments for the world all the time.
Right.
The whole idea is to divide and conquer.
Right. They take an independent nation and then go in and just take it apart. Just take it apart.
Exactly. That's right.
And then so they can bring in what they call democracy, and then
Right.
they enslave the people.
It's an old tune, but it's been played for many, many years.
Yeah.
The Nazis did it. The communists are doing it now. The Romans did it. The Greeks did it. The Persians did it. The Babylonians did it. The Sumerians did it.
Jordan, what do you think about all of the Islamic influence and how they're, Obama's just letting them come into the country, just free reign?
There's a reason for that. As you will probably know, there's always going to be a reason for everything.
Mm-hmm.
A reason for everything. Everything has a bottom line, and it's a reason. There's a very good reason why the Western civilization, what we call Judeo-Christian civilization, Europe and the Western civilization, English-speaking countries of the world, are being flooded by the mentally retarded, extremely and profoundly ignorant religion. Probably the most ignorant, ill-informed, profoundly anti-human religion.
Brutal. They're just brutally against humans.
Ignorant, ill-informed, unread.
Right. And against women, too.
Oh, they're against everything that's of any human value.
Right.
Except marrying 8-year-old girls. They don't mind that.
Right.
The grown men don't mind marrying. And in Islam, they have a particular belief system that you can rent a marriage for 24 hours. You have to pay money to the imam. You have to pay money to the religious leader in your town, and something to the parent of the little girl, and you can rent her for the night.
To have sex with her.
You know that? That's right.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can do that.
Just to have sex with her.
That's of course.
Oh my God.
It's called a marriage. It's called a temporary marriage.
Oh my God.
So that the man can interact with the little girl as if she were his wife.
And probably the little girl has no say in it.
No, the little girl has nothing. She doesn't know anything. She's only 8 years old.
Do the parents get money to do that?
That's right. Parents get money.
That's awful.
It's part of the Islamic religion.
Oh my God.
That a man, if you're an Islamic man, a Muslim, you can rent a little girl. All you got to do is go to your religious leader in the mosque, and you have to pay money, and then and then part of that has to go to the family, and it's called a temporary marriage for 24 hours. You have to bring her back in 24 hours. Well, I don't know,
That blows my mind.
Yeah, but it's true.
It blows my mind. That's awful.
It's true. And so that's why you have the Muslims, that want to cover their wives up in black. I mean, it's extraordinary when you begin to look at the insanity, human insanity that goes on in the world of religion. And my God, don't get me started on that. That's a 5-hour dissertation on
that. We'll have to have another conversation on that. But, you know, a lot of my friends and I, we're worried about the Muslim infiltration.
Well, let me go back and tell you about that. Let me find it. I want to read something to you. It's one paragraph that explains that whole subject.
Okay, great.
And I just wish I had known that I was going to talk about it, so I would have had it ready.
I kind of caught you off guard there.
No, that's okay. That's all right. It's just that there's a quote that was written many years ago, back in 1871. Let me find it on the web right now.
Okay.
It's a quote, and it's called Albert Pike. Let me see. P-I-K, Pike's letter to Mazzini.
Okay.
M-A-Z-Z-I-N-I, Mazzini. Albert Pike, here it is. Albert Pike wrote a letter back in 1871. Albert Pike was a very, very well known in America, in Arkansas, Clinton State, Arkansas. That should tell you something. And he was a very well-known man in the esoteric world.
Wasn't he a big guy in the Masons?
Yeah, but he was
Right.
also heavily involved in secret societies in Europe.
Right.
And the mafia, underworld operations, extremely well-connected and well-respected around the world. Not
Right.
just the criminal societies in America and the West, but no, all around the world, people venerated him as being a master in the world of the occult. Well, an occult simply means hidden.
Right.
So he was a master of hiding things, and he understood all the hidden implications. Well, if you go on the web and just type in Pike, P-I-K-E, Pike letter to Mazzini, M-A-Z-Z-I-N-I, Pike letter to Mazzini, and read what Albert Pike wrote to his friend in Italy, the great revolutionary, famous revolutionary in Rome. His name was Mazzini, Giuseppe Mazzini. And he also was world renowned for his involvement in all kinds of secret plots and secret societies and organized crime, etc., and a great politician. Well, Albert Pike and Giuseppe Mazzini were big buddies. They were in the same business, but Albert Pike was even more important at the time. And he wrote a letter to Giuseppe Mazzini, and in it he outlined and he said there are going to be 3 world wars. The first World War, he explained who was going to be against, and Russia's going to be involved in it. It's going to be about 1914.
Yeah, I've got the letter up here.
Yeah. And then he said there's going to be a second World War, and the second World War will be in Germany, and it will be a war in Germany for the domination of the world, the Second World War. And then that will be brought to an end. This is what he's writing in a letter back in 1871. But then he says in the letter that there will be a third world war. And he said, and I'll read it, the third world war must be formulated by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arab world, and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. 1871, he's writing this.
That's something.
Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. And here's the point.
Well, that's what we've been doing because we've been in all these wars and we're exhausted. And
that's right.
We don't have any money and we're
spiritually exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
Morals, everything. We're just depleted, period.
Right.
We don't even know that we don't even know we're alive.
No, we're done.
Then it goes on. He goes on to say in the 1871 letter, this is the big shot in Arkansas. I should tell you something about the Clintons. And he goes on to say, we shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations of the world the effect of absolute atheism, the origins of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude of the world, now disillusioned with Christianity, but whose deistic spirits will be from that moment on without a compass or direction, but anxious for an ideal without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought out into public view. This manifestation will result from a general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. That's why Islam is being freely flooding into the leaders of the Western world. The political leaders, the governments, are saying to all the Islamic terrorists and the murderers and the mentally disordered religion, bring all your prostitutes and your drugs and your sex and your 8-year-old girls, and bring all of that in with your guns. And if you don't have guns, hell, we'll buy you some.
Right.
And come in, all of you.
Right.
I don't care how crooked you are, how criminal you are, mentally disordered, on drugs. We don't care. Come on in. Why? Because as far back as 1871, we now know it's part of a world plot, a world system.
Part of the satanic plan.
They're part of the satanic plan. And here's how it works. It's very simple. The powers that are behind the world throne, the guys at the very, very top, and I'm not talking about Obama and all those people. I'm talking about the masters of this world who you will never know who they are. The guys who run the planet. Excuse me. They have a simple plot and a simple plan. Take the West and the East, the Eastern world and the Western world, and bring them together in an all-out, god-awful, bloody world war. One last and total, final, bloody war to end all bloody wars. And that will be between the Western civilization, Western Judeo-Christian civilization, Canada, America, England, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, as opposed to the Eastern world, the Middle East and Malaysia and the Eastern world. Bring the whole world to a world war. Where what Albert Pike said, the whole world will be in a bloody turmoil, but then the destroyers of civilization will be themselves destroyed.
Right.
So Islam does not realize, the Islamic people do not realize that they are being allowed into Europe and America and Western Judeo-Christian countries purposely. They're being led here purposely. Behind the scenes, there's a plan.
They're being used by Satan.
That's exactly right. They're being used. And here's how they're being used. Here's how the Muslims who will think that they are so intelligent, which obviously their religion shows they are not only not intelligent, they're mentally disordered. But they're so mentally disordered and ignorant, they have no idea they're being led to the slaughter.
Right.
Because, and here's why, they are being led into America and into Europe and into the Western societies purposely to anger the civilization called Judeo-Christian civilization. The powers that be on this earth that run the world want a world war. My God, they explained it back in 1871.
Right.
And they want to have a world catastrophe. Why? Because that's the way you change the direction of the human race.
Right.
if you want to change the entire human family on the earth going one way, if you want to step in and have the entire earth, the globe of the earth, turned around and going a different way, the best way to do it is with a war. That's the best way to break up any society and start a whole new kind of society, is in a major, major war.
Right.
Well, that's what Vietnam and the Middle Eastern wars of the Bushes has done to America. We used to be a country of laws and theology and religion, and we were a great nation. Today, we are not only not a great nation, we're not even a country.
No.
So we don't know what we're doing. And so the idea is that the people who run this planet want a new world order. That's what Adolf Hitler was talking about.
And that's when they'll bring in the Luciferian.
That's exactly right.
One world religion and the mark and all of that. And
so I need to add one more thing for you to understand.
Okay.
That when the Muslims are coming into Western civilization, enjoying our beer, enjoying our television, they're enjoying our country and our what we've worked hard all of our lives to build, and they're coming in and taking it all, and governments are giving them everything. They're giving them the money, giving them the guns, opening up the borders and telling all the revolutionary radicals in Islam, come on in, bring your wife, bring your girlfriends, bring your little 7-year-olds, bring all your
family,
bring your family, bring all the criminals, the mentally retarded, all of it. Bring it all in.
And they all get free everything.
That's right. But the reason why is because, come on in. Because what you're doing is you are, when you look at the big heavyweight championship fights in Las Vegas and around the world, the big fights like Muhammad Ali, you don't have those big fights without a fight promoter. You have to have the guys behind the scene who have got the big money.
Right.
And they put the big money on Muhammad Ali because they know he's good. So they put millions of dollars out to set up a major fight in Las Vegas. It's going to be televised around the earth. And they know that hundreds of millions of people are going to be watching this fight between the two heavyweight champions of the world, the two heavyweight champions, but hundreds of millions of people are going to be paying hundreds of dollars a piece, which amounts to billions of dollars. So they're going to put up $20 million to make $1 billion. And so, but who's going to orchestrate all of this monstrosity of a show? They're called fight promoters. And fight promoters know they don't care which one wins, which side wins, which fighter wins. They are caring about promoting the fight, right? Because that makes money,
right?
And so the idea is that the war that is being prepared now, that was talked about in 1871, but the war that is being prepared now has been prepared a long time ago. I remember reading about it and hearing about it from my family that were in the military. My uncle was high up in the military when I was a little kid. My mother's sister's husband was in the military, and he was talking about this, how the government was already planning 50 years from today, a major world wars are coming. And that World War II was over, but the big one's coming. But it won't be here for another 50 years because it's going to be the big one. And so the point I want to bring home, the point that you need to keep in mind is the fact that the Muslims are being flooded into Western civilization because the powers that be know that Western civilization is one of the most powerful, blood-letting presence on the earth. There's no war in the world that if America gets into it, you are finished.
Right.
America is a lot of things, but boy, if you get America into a war, you watch the bloodshed.
Right.
We don't kill 4 or 5 hundred. No, we drop bombs on atomic bombs.
We don't mess around when we go to war.
We don't mess around. You want to mess with America? Give it a try.
Right.
And even politicians today say that America is not the leader of the world morally or spiritually, but you can bet your ass they are militarily.
Right.
China can rattle swords all they want, and Russia and China can rant and rave all they want, but you better not even act like you're going to do anything. The American military is all over the world. It's the largest single military industrial complex on the earth, and it took down Adolf Hitler. It took down the Soviet Union. It'll take down anything on the earth, period.
Right. And
so the airhead, goofball, bearded, screwball, mentally disordered Muslims are no match for America's military might.
Right.
And so the people who run this planet know that. Mm-hmm. They're not worried about the Muslims taking over. They're going to kill them. Hmm. But you got to bait them. You got to bait them into a fight. And so, but you're going to have the rest of the world behind you when you kill them. And you're going to kill them all. But you got to have the rest of the world behind you. So the best way to do that is to provoke the Judeo-Christian world into a world conflagration. Going back to 1871, we shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists and shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all of its horror will show clearly to the nations the effects of absolute atheism, the origins of slavery, and the most bloody turmoil. But then it goes on to say that everywhere the citizens are obliged to defend themselves against this world minority of mentally deranged goofballs, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization. Oh. So that's the point. Mm-hmm. The powers that be in this world want to destroy civilization, period.
Right.
Both Western and Eastern civilization. The best way to do that is to get one half of the earth to war with the other half of the earth, like they did in the Civil War in America, mm-hmm. like they're doing in the Civil War in every country of the world today. Get half of the country killing the other half. So get half of the earth to war against the other half of the earth. Get Western civilization coming against Eastern civilization. And the best way to provoke that is to provoke the white man, provoke the European, Judeo, white civilization, provoke it, mm-hmm. push them into a war, and watch what happens. Well, that's how they're pushing us into a war, because the civilization, Western civilization, is up to its throat with this bullshit we call Islam, and all the murder, the violence, and even the ones who are not violent are doing nothing about it.
Right.
That's something you need to keep in mind.
Right.
We talk about, oh, well, the great majority of the Islamic people and the Muslims are peace-loving. My point is, how come the great majority of peace-loving, wonderful Muslims ain't said a word?
Well, they're afraid to, because, their people will kill them if they speak out against them.
It's the same reason why today in the Christian world, Christians, they'll say nothing about the Vatican.
Right.
And the Vatican's connection to Adolf Hitler and the murder and the Inquisitions of pouring hot lead down the mouth of children and the Inquisitions and cutting the people's heads off and putting torture chambers.
Satanism and blood sacrifices of children and everything.
That's it.
Right.
So, but the Christians won't say anything about that. We just go to church and put your money in and keep your mouth shut.
Right.
Why? Because we know that if we say anything, we're going to get it too.
Right.
And the Jews are equally as guilty. The Jews will not say anything about Karl Marx, V.I. Lenin, Trotsky, all the revolutionary Jews. who have murdered, rent, and raped and killed Russian Christians, European Christians, blood sacrifices. The Jews are killing people in Israel today, but the Jewish people will say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say anything. Why? Well, because you'll be a racist, or you'll be anti-Semitic, or you'll be homophobic, or something. You'll be something. So keep your mouth shut, because your own people will cut your head off.
Right.
Your own people will kill you. So therefore, it's a fail-safe mechanism.
Right.
Christianity will go along with anything the Christians do. The church will go, and whatever the church says, that's what Christians will do.
Right.
Whatever the president says, that's what the military will do.
Jordan, do you think that this Third World War, do you think this is Armageddon from the Bible?
Well, it very well, yeah.
They're orchestrating it for that. They're setting up for that, right?
Yeah.
And then they'll bring in their false antichrist and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
they can do that.
And the whole new world order. But the frightening part about it for me, the thing that scares me, is the fact that the human race won't even notice.
Oh,
they won't even know.
No, that's why they'll be deceived. They'll be deceived by all of it.
That's right.
And Jesus said everybody would be deceived.
Well, there it is. So the whole world lies in the power of the wicked one. Well,
right.
And so the scripture talks about how in Luke, I think it is, where the devil takes Jesus to the pinnacle of the temple. That's a very important subject right there. A 2-hour discussion on that one subject of the pinnacle of the temple. But anyway, we're told that Jesus is taken to the pinnacle of the temple by Satan, the devil, and the devil says to Jesus, if you will bow down and do one act of worship to me, I will give you all the kingdoms of the world.
Right.
Well, first of all, what was the answer? Does Jesus say, oh, no, you're just full of crap, you don't own the nations of the world? No. He just said, no, I'm not about to do that.
Right.
Well, then that means that when Satan says to Jesus, I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world, he said that because he's got all the kingdoms of the world.
Right.
And all the kingdoms of the world, it doesn't say in the Bible, I've read it many times, it doesn't say, Satan said, I will give you all the kingdoms of the world except, of course, America, because I don't have that one.
Right.
I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world except Great Britain. No.
So that implies that Satan owns all the kingdoms of the world.
Period. End of sentence.
Gotcha.
All of it. Good, bad, or ugly, all of it. The whole earth. The whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. Well, what that actually means to me is that there is a presence in this world, a dark and evil presence that controls the whole world, period. And that's why the human race is destroying itself, and there's nothing you can do about it because the people are in the clutches of a spiritual darkness that is killing the whole human race. It's called hypnotism.
Right.
The whole subject is hypnotism, to take the minds as mind control, hypnotism. I don't know. We could go on for days. But anyway, I think that the only salvation there is for individual people, individually, by yourself and on your own, decide you've had enough of this crap and drop out of the system of what Hollywood calls the
as much as you can. Right.
That's
as much as you can. Change your beliefs, drop out. Start thinking for yourself.
Don't have anything more to do with them. That's why the scripture has God say, get out of her, my people. It doesn't say get out of her, Buddhist, or get out of her, Hindu. No, in the Bible it says, get out of her, my people. I don't give a damn about the rest of you, but get out of her, my people. If you don't want to share with her. Well, what are you talking about, my people? Well, if it's in the Christian Bible, Jewish and Christian Bible, then my people would logically be Christians and Jews. So God is saying to Christians and Jews, get out of her, my people.
Right.
If you don't want to share with her and what's coming.
Right.
Well, the Christians have no idea what that means. They've never heard anything like that, so they don't know. Right. All they know is they're voting for Bush, and he's going to save us, or Obama, Marxist-Leninist, Soviet communist Obama is going to save us.
Muslim.
And so Marxist-Leninism, communism never saved Russia.
No.
And hasn't saved China. China's three-quarters capitalism all over China. Chinese are interested in one thing and one thing only, and it ain't communism. China is interested in world rule, money, power, political power. That comes with money, buying and selling countries and buying and selling products and food. They don't give a damn about this nonsense about Marx. Marx was a goofy, drug-running, goofy ass, and he wasn't even the author of the Das Kapital anyway. It was the League of Just Men. So anyway, the bottom line is that the whole world is being led into a world conflagration, and there's nothing we can do about it because 99% of the people of the earth collectively have got an IQ of 40.
Right.
Period. And that's why the Bible has Jesus saying they look with their eyes, but they do not see.
Right.
They listen with their ears, but they do not hear.
Right.
And with their heart, they do not get the sense of it.
Right.
And that's true today. With the heart, the whole Muslim world does not get the sense of what they're doing.
Right.
Grown men can rape 7-year-old girls overnight and never get the sense of what they're doing.
Right.
Because what they're doing is they're destroying the human relationship between humans on the earth. You cannot go about treating women the way the Muslim world treats women, and especially children, without ultimately destroying the human race.
Right.
Because, well, they're not the only ones. Hell, look at the Catholic Church. It's been murdering and killing, and they have altar boys. They put their boys on an altar, too. They have altar boys. Why? Because it goes back to the Old Testament where Abraham is told by God to kill your son, Isaac.
Right. Put him on the altar.
Yeah, put him on the altar. He's a boy. Put him on the altar and cut his head off or kill him. Mm-hmm. And so he's an altar boy. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm just saying the bottom line on all of this is very simple. People of this world, especially Americans, have no power to change anything. They have no power to change anything. They have no power to help themselves. They have no power to build what is good. They have no power. And the people of America know that. That's why they're on drugs, alcohol, and Dancing with the Stars, because they have no real political say in nothing. And they know it. And the reason why they have no political power and no say in anything is because knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And if you don't know what's going on, you've never read a book, you have no idea what the words mean, you have no comprehension of how the world really works, then you are not able to change nothing. You don't even know what's going on. So like Dick Gregory said many years ago to a black audience, all this crap about the black revolution and black this, and he said, hell, you don't even have a job. You need to go out and get a job and pay for your children and take care of your family instead of talking about overthrowing the government, because you ain't going to overthrow nothing. You're so damn ignorant and broke, you ain't got nothing. So how are you going to change anything? The only way you can change anything is if you change yourself.
Right.
The only way to do that is with education and knowledge and wisdom. And you ain't got that.
Right.
That's the one thing government doesn't want you doing is thinking. They want to put you into a uniform. Make sure that you are uniformity. That you are, you lockstep with everybody else and believe what everybody else believes.
Well, it's time for people to shit or get off the pot.
I would think so, about now.
I mean, we're down to the final
hours.
minutes. The final minutes.
I think so. The final minutes of a great society that's collapsing in front of us because the people are ignorant. The people will go along with anything. Right. They'll believe anything. Millions of people love criminals. Give us Barrabás.
Right. And this is a battle for the souls, and it's,
of course it is.
It's good against evil, and it's going to be, the dark side's going to get a lot of souls during this, and that's what it's all about.
They've already got 95%.
I know, but this is the
98%.
final. This is the final, and so people, you gotta start thinking now. You gotta. I know it's hard, but changing the belief system is hard.
It's going to be deadly, because now it's going to be deadly if you start thinking too much.
Right.
Because
it'll be against the law to do anything against what they preach and what they want to do.
It's against the law. You'll go to prison if you don't buy into it now. And so I think the biggest, most disgusting of all of it is the Christian religion, the Christian church, not the religion, but the Christian church. Because the church has gone along with everything.
Right.
They go along with anything Caesar wants. So that even today in Christianity, you cannot be a minister in Christianity unless you get a degree.
Right.
From a university, and it has to be accredited.
Right.
The word accredited means, well, you got to give us credit. Yeah, it's accredited. So Billy Graham University and all of these seminaries are accredited, which means that they have been looked at by the civil authorities. They've been looked at by Caesar. Tiberius Caesar of Rome has looked at your religious organization, and he sees that you have learned what to kiss and when, and he is now assured by the Internal Revenue that you will not be saying anything in that church that will disturb the Caesar and his government, and so he will give you permission to now have your church. So you have to get a degree from the university in order to be a minister. And you think, well, what did the 12 apostles have a degree? Did Jesus get a degree from the University of Jerusalem so he could be a teacher?
No, they had on-the-job training.
And so I look at all of this nonsense and the degrees and the Christian, and even Christian universities are called seminaries. Look at the word seminary. Go back to a dictionary, get an etymology dictionary. Look up the word seminary. Christians go to a seminary. It comes from the word semen. It comes from sex.
Right.
That's where it comes from. Seminary. Right. Seminal, meaning the human male fluid that impregnates the woman. Seminary. That's why you have so much child porn and all kinds of stuff going on, sex with boys in the church. It's seminary. The whole thing is sex. I don't know. It's just an incredible. Well, I mean, it's not just Christians. The Jewish religion is crammed filled with pornography and sex. And Islam, we don't even have to bring that up. Even imbeciles know that thing is filled with pornography and renting children. You can rent little girls, rent little boys. Right. And all over the Islamic world, it's well established in the Islamic Muslim world that boys are just as good of cases as the girls.
Right.
But you don't have to marry the boys. You can just rape them.
Right. Well,
so that's the world of religion, the three great religions of the world, all three, and, I don't know. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Why are there three major religions? Why three? Because Islam, Judaism, Christianity are called people of the book. And the book says in order to have a God, there has to be a triune God, Father,
Right.
Son, Holy Ghost,
The Trinity.
the Trinity. And so you have the three major religions all have a Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Osiris, Isis, Horus, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Jews, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And I asked a Jewish rabbi, a very highly ranking Jewish rabbi back in 1966, I said, was there an Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? He said, I don't know. Was there a Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva? Was there an Osiris, Isis, Horus? I mean, is there a Father, Son, and Holy Ghost? I said, no, those are just philosophical, religious, terms, symbolic terms. Well, that's what Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There was no Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob. There was no Moses. There was no King Solomon or King David. There was no all the important people in the Bible never existed. That's what a top rabbi told me back in 1966. It's all a story. That's why the Bible in the Old Testament is called the greatest story ever told. Mm-hmm. It's not the greatest collection of historical facts ever written. Greatest story ever told. It's a story. There was no King Solomon. Never existed. There was no Jesus. There was no the church Jesus today never existed. The original bears no resemblance to the lunacy that the church falls all over themselves and dancing around the stage with their effeminate hairdos and their $60 million jets. Have no idea in the world what the original Christianity was really all about. Mm-hmm. And so, since there was no Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, there was no King Solomon, there was none of that. It's an encoded story that the people look with their eyes but do not see.
Right.
But to know the truth will set you free.
Right.
And boy, once you understand what's really going on with religion and its connection to government, and government and religion's connections to organized crime and the entire human civilization on earth connected to demonism and devil worship. Once you open up your mind for the first time, and I always say, your mind is like a parachute. Don't work if it ain't open.
Right.
So, like I said, we could talk for hours.
Well, let's wrap this up. We can continue this another time on more topics. I feel like we just gave our listeners a huge red pill today.
Yeah, I know. I feel like taking the pill myself.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up, and let's have you tell people how they can contact you. Your website, it's not jordanmaxwell.com.
No.
That one was taken over. It's
That's right.
jordanmaxwellshow.com.
Right. There are two websites out there on the web. One is called Jordan Maxwell. That's Jordan, Jordan, like the river. Mm-hmm. The Jordan. Maxwell, Maxwell, Jordan Maxwell. And there's a website out there called jordanmaxwell.com. Mm-hmm. Well, that was my old original back in 1999, 2000, when I established that website. I called it jordanmaxwell.com. Mm-hmm. Well, I needed a webmaster back in 2009, 2010. I needed a webmaster. So this young guy came in and said, "Oh, I just love what you're doing, Jordan. I'll help you." And I said, "Well, I need a webmaster." I'll take care of that for you. So I give him the codes to my website, the username and the password to my website, so he could be my webmaster. He immediately stole my website. He stole, put his name in as the new owner because he's got the codes, so he can do that. Right. So he put himself in as the new owner. He redirected my bank account. Oh. He redirected it to his personal bank account.
Yeah, I've heard this story. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he redirected my email.
I know. It's
so
awful.
That now any money is coming in for my products, for products and books and videos. He's making tons of money for almost 6 years now, and I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it because I'm the one that gave him the codes to the website, so he's perfectly free to just steal everything an old man has worked for all his life, and nobody can do anything. Nobody. Courts can't do nothing. Nobody can do anything.
Yeah.
So I had to start a new website called Jordan Maxwell Show, SHOW. Very simple.
Mm-hmm.
So go to jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's my website. And stay way away from jordanmaxwell.com. That's a criminal who stole everything I own. So
right, that's the wrong one. The right one is jordanmaxwellshow.com.
Correct.
People can find out how to contact you there. Mm-hmm. You also have your own private research society.
Yep. I have a second website on my first research. On my first website was Jordan Maxwell Show, but on there you will see buttons that says Research Society, and it invites you to join it. It's only $30 for a lifetime subscription, and I only charge $30 for a lifetime because I have to pay my webmaster, and I live by myself on Social Security with nothing.
Right.
So I can't pay my webmaster. I can't pay to keep that going. So I just charge one-time fee, and it goes to my webmaster so he can keep it going. And I'm downloading or uploading, whatever you want to call it, all of my research documents, all the occult stuff that people have never heard, symbols, emblems, the religions, government, commerce, banking, how all of this dirty stuff really works. And I'm putting out there a lot of documents, videos, audios, websites, recommendation, free books, free ebooks, all kinds of research on all kinds of subjects. And I'm putting it all on a website I call Research Society. It's just a separate website in which I'm just uploading all of my work for people to see before I leave this world. I'm 76 years old. I got a bad heart. I've been very sick. And so I'm not going to be here much longer. But I want people to be able to at least have a resource for all of the really dark stuff going on in the world. And that's Jordan Maxwell Show. And then join the Research Society.
Yeah, and that's a bargain. That's a bargain. The $30 one-time donation, and it's all of your old shows and everything. Everything's up there.
Everything. I've got all of my old research from years ago.
That's great.
All the new stuff, brand new stuff. Got it all.
And you're also available for consultations if people need to consult with you.
Lots of people email me and they want to talk with me. Well, of course, and I'm always tried. All my life, I've tried to make myself available. I'm the only one that does that. George Lucas doesn't make himself available, and movie stars don't make themselves available. Important people around the world do not make themselves available. But I have always tried to talk to anybody. Anybody wants to call me and come visit me, and I would sit and talk with it. But now at 76 years old and having a heart attack, I'm very old and tired, and I don't have time now. My life is going now, so I don't have time to sit and chit-chat all day long for free. So I just don't have the wherewithal to do it. I love talking to people, but I'm too old and too tired. I've been doing it for 50 years. So now I say, if you want to talk to me, if you really want good advice, if you're going to prison for 30 years, you want some good advice, you're going to pay a good attorney who knows how to help you. If you have got a disease or your child is dying, you're going to have to pay a doctor a lot of money. You're going to, anything in this world, there's no free lunches. You got to pay if you want the good. And if you want to pay a few bucks, you can pay a little bit and get a little bit. If you want the best, it's going to cost more. So my point being is that if you want the knowledge that I have taken almost 55 years of my life, 24 hours a day, researching, studying all of the audio, videos, documents, books, links, go to my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, and join the Jordan Maxwell Research website. It's called Research Society. Again,
Right.
I want to thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Jordan. I know we went long today, but I think this is important information, and you're such a light to the world, and I'm so honored to have spent this time with you, and I look forward to more conversations with you in the future.
Oh, I'm sure we could do it.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Well, take care and have a good evening, and God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.